So let's talk about this development and what it means for a better situation of power supply in Nigeria. Joining us now is an energy policy analyst. He's also the team lead Platforms Africa. Adeola Yussuf, welcome to TVC Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right. So what do you make of this development? What does it mean? This is like a day after the national grid collapsed and then was revived. And then this has not been the first time we've been having this back and forth and, wars in the power sector. Is this good at this time?
Okay. It's a welcome development. But before, for everyone to understand why it is a welcome development, on Friday, 1st of November 2013, that was what everyone, had to be the privatization of the power sector. But before this, some documents were signed. And one of the key ingredients, aspect of that was signed in that document was that Nigeria was partitioned, just like what happened at the Berlin conference, was partitioned into 11 different catchment areas. The people, the properties, everything within those 11 catchment areas belong to what we know to be the discos. So what that means is that a disco, for instance, that is supplying the power to the Ikeja people, will be the one that has the Ikeja people are the property of that disco. Another disco cannot come and supply power there. Even though in many situations in which some areas will be so close to another disco, so they cannot, because that partitioning has been done, and it is a signed document that no one can go there. What those people will do is to just go to a court of competent jurisdiction and get present those papers signed by the government, countersigned by them, and you know what court will do. So now what this bill has done is to realign, to rearrange that agreement. That if eventually is assented to by the president, and eventually we don't have a court case, because some of us that have been following the sector will know that a court case can come out of this, because there is a signed document in which Nigeria is partitioned into 11 different catchment areas. So you cannot do anything, even if you want to do what they call other arrangement of power generation. You need to sign agreements with those discos that your area belongs to. So if this scales through, I think it's a very, very good development.
But your explanations, does it have to do more with the operators, more with the discos, as against the interest of the residents?
No, I'm trying to call your attention to what, the brick wall that this is likely to
this new regime that we are entering.
But if you don't have anything like that, I think it's a very, very good development, because the population of Nigeria, from the data available, 200 million, very, very few percentage of that are connected to the grid. And another view that I used to look at this bill is that even before now, Nigerians have been generating their electricity. Now, a lot of Nigerians, you'll be so amazed to know that a lot of people watching us may be watching us with a power, power generated by themselves, power transmitted by themselves, power supplied by themselves. A lot of Nigerians are doing that. So what this bill has just
come... things like solar, inverter, and stuff like that, or generator?
No, through generator. So that has been the case a lot now. But what this has come to address is, I think, those mistakes in the document signed. I think so. If this scales through, I think it's going to be something very, very
What are those mistakes?
Okay, the first one is signing an agreement to say that, okay, an area permanently belongs to a disco. So what that means is that if you generate more than one megawatt or up to 1 megawatt, you need to sign an agreement with that disco, which you know
what, you can't come into my territory without my permission.
You cannot, you dare not.
So that was in the old or in the current regime?
In the one that we're having now. So it's very, very important to call attention to that. It's a very, very good news if eventually this scales through. Because what that will mean is that an estate that has a capacity can go ahead and do that without, having the fear that eventually their plans can be scuttled.
What of the whole idea of $100 million with Siemens and all of that? Well, how does that play into this?
Okay, so during that privatization, there's a lot of plans that were in place. One thing that you need to understand is that power generation, before you can generate a megawatt from data available, you need close to $2 million, if not more than that. So it is an arrangement that is, that needs heavy investment. So what the government had, felt that it would do that time is that, okay, as much as they have privatized those properties, those assets that belong to them, they will now look for investment and reinvest in what they call the NIPP, the power plants, so that at the end of the day, because those people will not have the money, at the end of the day, they can still have arrangement with other people and sell that out. Then the proceeds that they have from that, they will still use that one to reinvest. So that at the end of the day, the number of megawatts that we need as a country, will be able to, move close to it. So that has been the plan.
How does the cement thing come into it?
Okay, so the cement is an arrangement that the government has signed for, improvement in power generation, and in some other cases, the entire power value chain.
You have been talking about generation, also of supply. That's the disco.
Yes.
Because you are talking, if somebody is going to come into my territory, are you talking about generating in my territory or supply in my territory? Okay,
so it's important that I lay this background.
Right.
Okay, so we have 3 strata in the power value chain.
Yeah.
The generation is the first one.
The
the generation, from the world are those the producers. We have the thermal power gencos. Those are using gas. We have a number of them in Nigeria. I think close to over 70% of power being generated in Nigeria are from thermal plants. Then we have the hydro. Those are being generated. Okay, so that one is one side, the first one. Then we have the transmission. So transmission is the link. Is the one that they usually evacuate power being generated, because all those things are, very technical. So they evacuate the power. And they use the grid. You see them across the country, those power lines that stand like human being, like a skeleton. So those are the grid that they use to evacuate that power from the power generation company. So they will not take it to substation to step it down, because it's very, very high voltage that they're evacuating. So they stepped it down at a substation. Then from that, they will not take it to our different transformers in our home. That is when it gets to the distribution company. So what the government did on Friday, November 1st, 2013, was to privatize the generation and the distribution, leaving the transmission still in its armpit. And what the government, a lot of people agree with the sense that, the reason the government gives, that they cannot afford to leave everything in the hands of private sector. But now, it is that transmission that we repeatedly have issues with. And I'll tell you the issues we usually have. Number one, those assets, majority of those assets are obsolete, quote and unquote, because I said quote and unquote because those that are in transmission will still disagree that those, but they have been built over the years that they will need. So, and they have capacity. The capacity we had that majority of them have is about 4,000, 5,000. Even though we are being told that the transmission capacity has been raised beyond that, but anytime we have megawatts that is about 5,000 being dumped into that grid, it collapses. Well,
so
and it shows that the capacity. So it collapses.
Once above 5,000.
Once it's above 5,000,
it collapses.
It can't handle.
Because that is the limit. So we've had a number of times that the generation companies have complained that transmission has usually want them not to generate more than the capacity. So most times you hear of idle power. And one thing about power is that once it's generated,
if you don't use it, it's waste. So that's why some of the gencos are saying that we are losing a lot of money because we generate and we don't get paid for it.
Yes. So that is aside. So, but one thing that we need to call attention to, now is that about the capacity of the it doesn't make any sense, be it economic, be it security, be it any sense at all, to have a grid that is, national. Okay, the reason for that is that if enemies of the country want to put the whole country in darkness, what they will just do is to
target. It's just a target.
Just a strike.
So how does this, right, okay, finish your thoughts on that.
Over the years, I sat in an interview with the former Minister of Power, Professor Batinanji, in which he confirmed, and we reported it that time, that on the eve of former President Goodluck Jonathan regime, the National Executive Council approved, contracts for what they call the super grid. And what the super grid will do, because a lot of people have been advocating for that, is to make sure that in all the geopolitical zones that we have smaller grids there. So that power being generated in the southwest, for instance, will just be within that zone. So that if anything happens to one grid, it doesn't affect the entire
Does
country.
it appear that this captures, that this new, if it flies across the states and with the president,
so what this now means,
capture that?
It captures that. What this now means is that, okay, if a state has a capacity, because I know they will not have the money, but if they can liaise with investors, because even World Bank, African Development Bank, everyone wants, Africa to be powered. So they can, with this now, they can, approach investors, get investments, and generate, transmit.
In a way, we are taking it away from the exclusive list. That's what it looks like.
Okay, maybe
because that's what it's looking like. Because you need the legislation to do that. Power is on the exclusive list now. It's taking it. If you are giving it to the states, this is things that began when Asiwaju was came with Aaron when he was governor and so on, trying to find a way to tweak the system to make states do that.
And right. It's important, this that we are doing, even though that will be because of, set of documents being signed, even though that will be fair before now of, litigation, I think it's something that ought to have been done. But it's a welcome development that we're having it now.
Right. But if the states, now can, give licenses for, people to generate power and all that, but then there's still a substantial chunk of power or control that rests with the federal government. Is that still futuristic? Is there no way we can also divest the federal government of, issues regarding supply and all of that? Okay.
So what happened that time? During the privatization, I'll talk about that and talk about privatization, was that it was only the generation and the distribution that were privatized.
Yes.
And what they did was to privatize, because a lot of people do not understand, the nitty-gritty of that privatization. Most times I've listened to analysts talk about relating what happened in the telecom sector with what happened in power sector. No. What happened in the telecom sector was what we call liberalization, or I think liberalization, there's another word that is so popular that people usually show, but it's when we liberalize the market, allowing other people to participate. But what happened in the power sector was to sell the assets that you have to some people. So a monopoly transfer asset to another monopoly. But what we actually need is to liberalize the market so that other people can still come in. Like what happened in the telecom sector. If you are not interested in the service of one provider, all you need to is to just change.
Yeah, no, you are saying that in the case of telecom, what they did was to open the
deregulate
bandwidth.
Yes.
So everybody can now have his own share of bandwidth.
Yes.
You have your own equipment. But in the case of power sector, the equipment is going to be the one you are going to sell.
Yes,
exactly.
And what happens in the advanced world is that this deregulation now, if it scales through, quote and unquote, is going to still, nosedive, come down to the market. And how do I mean by coming down to the market is that today, this week, you may buy, like what happened in the advanced world, you may buy, power from a disco, and next month you may feel dissatisfied with that disco and buy power from another disco. But now it cannot happen because you dare not do that. You and your property belong to a disco according to that region.
Based on where I live.
Based on where you live. Based on where you live. But there are instances.
So we're talking about localization of power.
Right. Thank you. So, and I think it's something that we have been doing before. Just like I cited the example, people you have a generator.
That was a joke actually, but then that's the reality.
You've been doing that. So now what this is just going to do is to make sure that, okay, so if you are generating, close to 1 megawatt, because 1 megawatt is so much.
Really? So it's not my needs at all.
You don't need to even go and file for license.
So I don't even need a license.
But if I'm generating 10 and I only need 6. I can say, okay, I want to give you who has 1. I want to give you 3 because you need 4.
Yeah, so
then I sign an agreement with you.
Thank you so much, sir.
So that's possible.
That is the sense now, and that is why a lot of us that understand the end point of this still have the fear of litigation or fear of lobbying for this not to see the
interest now.
Why would somebody want to litigate it if it is
something that will work? Right.
Okay, so there is an agreement signed with government that, okay, these people, this area, the properties in this area belong to me. No other disco can come here and do any power, electricity business.
Of course.
Okay. So now, this bill is now saying that, okay, so people can gather without applying for license, without going to meet those that have seen those areas as their property and go ahead and
But I have to have an agreement before I do that. Does it mean that it's possible for me from another locality to just supply and collect money from another person's territory? Is it possible?
No. So
you're talking. Are you saying that people can just breach other people's territory and make money and come out?
No. What I'm saying is that even you in that territory, you cannot, based on that agreement, you cannot generate. When it gets to a certain, voltage level, you cannot generate, you cannot transmit, you cannot do anything without talking to
the locality. So that's why I'm asking. Why would I, since I have to talk to the person before I can even get there, why would there be a legal issue?
No. So what this thing is now saying is that you don't need that.
Oh, you don't need the agreement.
You don't need that.
So it brings sanity into the system.
Thank you so much. So what this is saying now...
So you can raid.
Yeah. So what this is saying now is that, okay, so if you are generating not up to 1 megawatt, you don't need to apply for a license.
For a license, all right.
So those are the implications of this.
It could create chaos.
No, not chaos. It's something that is very, very better. But if one knows, the likely end of something, it's important that one pinpoint, call attention to that. Right. So that before it gets to that level, I know the lawmakers too, they understand this game. I hope that immediately this is done, the bill is passed, I expect the president to sign it.
Without any delay?
Without any delay. Because if any time is wasted on this, it can... people's attention. We have lawyers that are already waiting to make cool cash
on this. All right.
Well, so they will now, because since you don't have to agree before you poach, then
right.
But if the law is that you can poach without agreement, then where's the legal issue there?
It might also be left for the courts now to determine the extent of powers and rights that each generator, quote and unquote, now enjoys without, infringing on another person's rights.
Okay, so to react to what Mr. Omashe said, sir, if there is an agreement before this law now, okay, an agreement signed by the government and all that, they can go to court, and that will delay a lot of things.
Okay, so they have to annul that law first.
Maybe they talk to them, and what is happening already in the distribution, stratum of the power value chain now is that a lot of investors, those that bought, those assets, a lot of them are already losing their assets. We have all read reports of, 7 of them. In fact, about 8 of them now that have lost the license to to lenders, to banks.
And now the banks have taken over.
Now banks have taken over.
So
I think we are already seeing a natural change in the system in the system.
But how does that even help the system at all, where banks now have to come to take control of this discourse?
Okay, so what happened is that on that day that those assets has been transferred, government still retains 40% through the BPE, Bureau of Public Enterprise. So a bank cannot take over without an input for BPE. In actual fact, BPE, NEC, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, are the ones that are helping in supplying the technical personnel for those. So because banks, the interest of bank is just to keep its ahead. So and the best that they can do too is to make sure that they put those things on a very strong footing. So all those names that were announced, all those changes that were announced, they were announced with a due understanding of BP and NEC.
All right.
Adeola Yussuf to talk about the renewable energy
and the prospects, but we've run out of time. Obviously, there will be need to get more clarity of this this promising outlook now for the power sector in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Adeola Yussuf, for your contributions.
Thank you so much for having me.